This is the Secure Cyber Connect podcast with Jay Adamson and Maureen Atkinson, where we're joined by information cybersecurity, technology and talent acquisition professionals who share their journeys, unique perspectives and offer advice and guidance.
Our topics on this episode will be how Web3, blockchain, DeFi, 5G and IoT are rebuilding trust within tech and driving innovation. Today we're honoured to be joined by Abdallah Kanaan. Della is a tech-preneur working at the intersection of technology, community and systems design. He's the founder and CEO of AMLOK, a platform that enables businesses and creators to raise capital directly from their communities, offering rewards, revenue sharing opportunities and long-term engagement without giving up ownership or relying on outdated financial models. Abdallah's background blends cognitive science with emerging technologies such as blockchain, AI and digital infrastructure. He was a founding team member and program manager at the Dubai Future Accelerators, where he worked with government leaders and startups to develop real-world solutions across sectors such as police, education, health, energy and transport. Abdallah's work focuses on building tools and frameworks that empower people, whether it's helping entrepreneurs launch scalable ventures or exploring how cities of the future can think, adapt and serve their citizens more intelligently. He joined us on the podcast following on from his impressive co-founder and life partner Joanna Attia's episode a few months ago to share his own lessons from the entrepreneurial journey, insights into digital transformation and what it really takes to build for the future, both professionally and personally. Abdallah, welcome to the Secure Cyber Connect podcast. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, it's such an honor, Jay and Warren. Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to it a lot, and yeah, just really looking forward to having such an insightful conversation with two legends in the space like yourself. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Now, thanks, Abdul, and let me firstly say congratulations on your most recent recognition.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, it's really nice, when you're finally at the point of where you're being chased rather than doing the chasing yourself. And it's always, a very special, unique point in time when your startup goes from just something in your head to something out there. And the feedback that you receive is just for us, that's worth more than any bit of money we can get. The fact that we're actually solving real world problems. And yeah, like I said, the feedback has been incredible so far. But thank you, Warren. Appreciate that.
That's great work. And before we unpack all of that, and of course, the session itself, could you give the audience a high-level review of some of the topics and areas that we're going to explore?
Yes. So as Jay mentioned, it's just really about the convergence of emerging technologies, AI, blockchain, IoT, cybersecurity, and 5G into intelligent human serving systems, and how this gives birth where we move away from smart cities into cognitive cities. Also, from my experience, building Amllock in a regulated world where you're using technology of today, but trying to navigate laws that were written in 1930s. So that was a very unique experience, but also would love to share some personal insights, from my experience, working with some of the best and the most brilliant minds in the space at Dubai Future Accelerators. And then obviously my own experiences as a 7-time startup founder. And of course, this time being unique where I'm actually building with my life partner. So that's been an eye-opening lesson and really made me a much better leader at work, but also allowed me to really look deep within and become closer to the best version of myself that I want to be.
Well, we'll look forward to getting into that a bit later on in the episode for sure. We usually kick things off with a couple of icebreakers, really. I suppose the first question we typically ask a lot of our guests is if you could maybe flag up and highlight a particular challenge that you faced in your career that shaped your views on cyber security, blockchain, really any topic, I guess, that was a defining moment for you.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is actually, especially being in the blockchain space and where everyone's really talking about decentralization and having self-custody of their funds and, being away from the big bad government and, controlling your own finances. The first lesson that came is just how much of a Wild West this really is and the responsibility that comes with doing so. So even though I know I'm a very technical person, been involved in the space, since 2017. I almost got hacked, actually. And I use the term hacked, but it's actually socially engineering phishing attack where I was about to lose everything. And then that's the moment that gave me the kind of like the epiphany moment where I said, you know what, I'm a firm believer in technology. I do believe in decentralization, but it's also, there needs to be a marriage of some sort between the powers that be, the government and the individuals themselves. And that really echoes a lot of the work that I was doing with Dubai Future Foundation, to see that it's really about integration, not competition, and really building things that are larger than the sum of their parts. And you'll hear me say this more and more, but this is the core lesson that I've really learned, that nothing ever is perfect out of the box, and no two people will meet and have the exact same views on things. But it's just this kind of, dance that you need to have with, with the government, with the regulators, especially if you're an innovator. But also, like I said, the lesson that I had previously is that, you could never be too careful, especially with the technology of today. And as you guys know, with more things being connected to the internet than any time ever before, it's very, very important that we teach security and security practice from the core. So it's not really, most people tell you that they got hacked, but actually the majority of hacks aren't really hacks. They're really, social engineering or phishing attacks. And that's where you play on the trust of the human being. This is where, if you don't have the right guardrails in place, you could really, end up in hot water.
Absolutely, yeah. And just following on from that, was there potentially a mistake that you felt you'd made at some point in your career that you got a valuable and important lesson that you learned from?
Yeah, quite a few. I think the one common theme is we tend to assume a lot. So, whether you're, a founder and you're thinking that, you have a problem and you're like, oh, wow, I want to build a solution that solves this problem. You tend to assume that this is the problem that everyone is facing. And then you go ahead and you build, and then you come to the point of where you're about to go to market, but then you realize that, no one really cares about that problem, or someone else found a better way to solve this problem. So assumptions were definitely a main thing, that never to assume, just, test. But also the lesson that's more dear to me is, you have to have a trifecta as a founder. You got to have the perfect product, the perfect team, and the right time to market. But from these three, I think the hardest thing is team. I've seen, even at during my time at Dubai Future Accelerators, some of the most brilliant people in this, in the world, really, really brilliant minds building some deep tech. But it's just that the team has no chemistry or synergy, or it's, ego trips around here where everyone wants to have the spotlight and, be the one to shine rather than working for the collective. So this lesson for me was to, team is probably the most important lesson that I've learned, but also about when you find that right team, don't just assume, have conversations, go out there. With Amllock, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail, but literally going from door to door, talking business to business on the ground, nothing can replace that. That is one of the most important lessons that I learned early on.
Appreciate you sharing. And you obviously mentioned intelligence infrastructure at the start of the session. To begin with, our audience, to familiarize them with that, what was actually meant by cognitive city, and how does that differ from traditional smart cities and digital transformation, for instance?
Right. So this is a thought experiment, and this was based on my work with the Ministry of Communication IT in Saudi and what they're building in NEOM. So what is a cognitive city? So just imagine this: you land in the airport of the cognitive city. You don't have to, passport, your face is your ID. You walk straight out, no immigration desk. Your bags are already on the way to your location. You get out of the airport, there's a self-driving vehicle with your name on it, knowing where you're going to go. Again, your face is your ID, takes you to your hotel. You don't go to reception desk. You go walk right into your room. Again, your face is your ID. You open the room, and the room is set to your perfect ambiance, temperature, has your favorite meal waiting for you, maybe your favorite song or playlist playing on Spotify. And this kind of symbiotic relationship between human and city, and this only comes from the convergence of these, AI, blockchain, IoT, 5G, and cybersecurity. And the analogy that I use is, as cognition, operates in the human brain. Right now, you've got the Internet of Things, which are the senses: your eye, your sense of smell, your sense of hearing, your sense of touch. All of this information is collected, travels through the spinal cord, which is the mix of what blockchain is. It's a data transfer, but it's secure through cybersecurity, and it has almost no latency thanks to 5G. It goes up to the hippocampal area of your brain, which is the AI, and that aggregates all this information and tells you how to interact with the stimulus around you. The same sense, this is what a cognitive city is. And we used to call it smart city. But what we're moving towards right now is this convergence between all these technologies that creates actual intelligence, where your city can predict based on your routine, based on what you do, what you're about to do next, or how you go about your day. Similar to kind of how like we have this relationship with our mobile devices now, with our cell phones, and they're very personalized to us. The same thing is that the city that you dwell in will have this symbiotic relationship with you, and this could only happen when all these technologies converge in a way that makes this possible. But of course, if you want to be comfortable to give all your data away, you're not going to be comfortable giving it unless it is secure, decentralized. There's very good cybersecurity guardrails in place to protect that. And then again, like I said earlier, it's about building things larger than the sum of their parts, and this is the relationship between the city and the individual. And this is what I see happening. It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when, over the next few years.
It certainly feels like a natural progression from smart cities. Myself and Jay have been involved in a number of projects, not just here in the UK, but across Europe, that focus on IoT and OT and bringing those systems together. Obviously, we've seen that accelerate in most recent times with the advent of AI, of course. And I certainly feel it's more of an adaptive approach to the systems as opposed to reactive. So it is encouraging to see. And from your perspective, what parallels can you draw from human cognition and those of digital systems, for instance? And what are other practical benefits that you feel are on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, it's like rather than the city being reactive, it's proactive. So predictive services, let's say healthcare or real-time risk prevention for security, or even personalized civic services. And this only happens, again, as human beings, we call it heuristics. So we learn from experience, and this is where your brain started off as survival, but obviously in today's world, it's how we can optimize energy, optimize time to be more productive. So, like as I mentioned, the senses are giving thousands of data from the stimulus around you into your body. The data is being transferred up to the brain, and then in real time, it is telling you how to act. This is the same thing that when you have an operating system, an OS, imagine an entire city having its own OS in which then you are plugged into. And this is where I see it becoming, again, like the city predicting what you're about to do, or proactive and making things easier for you. This is where I see it as much as possible. And then again, for this purpose, as I said, trust is very important, and this is why we move towards trustless systems, to minimize human error. So when you want something like this and to operate at the speed that you want it for it actually to make sense, you need to have these technologies in place. And then this, of course, raises a whole different, argument to like ethics and laws. And for example, in these cognitive cities, when, for example, two self-driving vehicles get into an accident, whose fault is it? We don't yet have the laws that tell us, is it the operating system of the self-driving cars? Is it the human being for not pressing the emergency? Is it the city for their infrastructure? So it's a all hands-on approach from multiple sectors that we need to work on right now to make this as ready as possible for the future.
I think the challenge is going to be accountability. You're going to get the developers and the programmers, the software companies saying we're not accountable. The cities aren't going to be accountable. The insurers certainly aren't going to pay out. So I think from a regulatory standpoint, we've got a lot to navigate there. And briefly, could you give us an example of a cognitive city or some projects that you're excited about, that you heard of, that the audience may not be familiar with?
Right. So Neom in Saudi, maybe if you heard of the line, that is as close to a cognitive city right now as what's happening. Obviously, it's in progress, but also it's the fact that it's being built embedded from the ground up. So even that right now, if you were going to retrofit or make a city into a cognitive city, it's going to be pretty challenging because of the infrastructure that hasn't been built with that in purpose. But now, for example, when you have buildings which have all these systems embedded, the way it will go is that even if you're in an apartment building, everything's embedded in the infrastructure. For example, your fridge can tell you what groceries you're missing and knows exactly what you eat and already make an order, for example, with your nearest grocer and the delivery will come, and it'll come straight into your fridge without you having to do anything about it. Just obviously as a thought exercise. But yeah, I believe the closest so far we have to an actual cognitive city, and I believe we'll really see that 2030 onwards, is the line in Neom and the work that they're doing on the Neo OS, so it's the operating system of the city. But this was something I was personally involved in, so I got to see like all the, as I said, the integration, the convergence of all these different technologies, and how they're having it with not as an afterthought, but rather embedded in the infrastructure itself.
It's incredible. And I know, Jay, you like to travel. I'm sure you'll be getting out there soon enough.
Yeah, it's exciting, fascinating stuff. And talking a little bit more about Amllock, in terms of Amllock's journey and the perils of innovations within legacy environments, and there's many issues that we know of in terms of navigating sort of complex and evolving global regulations, complexities that come with compliance costs, approval cycles, barriers to entries, and of course, finding the right talent. What were the biggest challenges that you faced when launching Amllock within a highly regulated environment, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, this is it's a great question. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm sure I'm not alone, but this is the same with anyone who innovates, will find themselves in a way where, or in a position where they're talking about the technology or the power of the technology, where the regulations or the compliance is years behind. So, in terms of like what Amllock is doing, convincing regulators that tokenization is not speculation, and staying away from the securities laws, which is it's a mess to be in, especially in the technology that you're in, but you're still having to shape it to fit laws built in 1930s, which is just still it's mind blowing. Designing Amllock to meet all the KYC and AML requirements from day one, having embedded compliance, educating users to use something that they're still not very, familiar with. And as we know, right now, I think mass adoption will only occur when people are using technology without even really knowing that they're using it. Same thing as when we open our bank app on our phone. We don't really know what's going on in the back, but it just works. It does the job. This is one thing that also was difficult for Amllock, because we wanted to stay away from the buzz itself. We leverage, non-fungible token, digital certificates, smart contracts, crypto, which are all subsets of blockchain. But then for example, when you mention the term NFT, everyone thinks of a $200,000 JPEG of a monkey. And that's just not it, right? The fact that we're in 2025 we have a house deed that's a piece of paper, a driver's license that's a card. And these kind of like this paradigm shift was a massive challenge for us as well. But I think one of the things that I was very keen about is, so right now with every crowdfunding platform, it's purely speculative. So let's say you're a company that's raising funds from let's say on Republic, you launch a campaign. What's happening right now is people are supporting the campaign, and then there has to be this admin paperwork where you have to set up a special purpose vehicle, and then you issue the shares across the 10,000 holders. When blockchain came into play, people didn't really change that much. They said tokenization, which means what? Like they want to tokenize the project, but they're still setting up a special purpose vehicle and then issuing the tokens across 10,000 holders. So the process didn't change much, and it's purely speculative. So what Amllock wanted to say and come along and say, hey, listen, why can't you turn your community, your trust capital with your community into working capital without giving away any equity? Because blockchain allows that. Smart contracts allows that. As a business, you're a coffee shop, you want to open 3 more locations, you got a vibrant community. Rather than go to the bank or a VC or private equity, launch a campaign on Amllock, reward your community in a way that wasn't possible before, thanks to smart contracts and NFTs, but also enable them to receive revenue from the future endeavor or the endeavors that are being backed by their community, rather than giving away any equity. And this was the part that I was very, very passionate about, because this is the part that really only blockchain and smart contracts can do. Especially if you're talking about like milestone-based funding, or to allow your community to be engaged with how you run your business. It wouldn't have been possible before without a trustless system like blockchain and the automation and the scalability of smart contracts. So when we go and we talk, to our creators, and many of them are familiar with Web3 and how Web3 works, but their backers aren't, or their community isn't. So the challenge was also about building something that is, as I always say, like it's Web3 technology with Web2 familiarity, and merging both. That for us was something that we found was pretty unique. And after a year and a half testing with alpha clients, beta clients, we finally believed we cracked it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and here you are, and it's really starting to come together now. And going back a bit with your own experiences, you obviously played a key role as a founding team member and program manager at Dubai Future Accelerators. What did that experience teach you about scaling innovation, and how founders maybe can better align within sort of public sector opportunities without compromising that agility?
Right. It's so that gave me quite a few lessons or insights, but I think the main one was the aspect of the importance of co-creation between the startups and the public sector. The way it usually works is that if public sector goes ahead, issues the laws and regulations without really, or being so disconnected from the innovators. So it's very important for the innovators to be plugged into this framework and have a say in how this framework is developed for regulations. This kind of like co-creative atmosphere. And what I really loved about in Dubai is that Dubai is not, it's a pretty unique place because it's run like a company. So you've got His Highness Sheikh Mohammed being the CEO of the emirate. His ministers are his like VPs, and then they have their departments. And it's so incredible to be working with a government where there's really minimal red tape or bureaucracy. You show something to His Highness, he likes it, he says go, and you go, and that's it. So also it was really incredible to see how Dubai became like a living test bed for these we call them very advanced technologies. So like with Dubai Health Authority, for example, we had robotic surgeons, and then we tried to see how this would look like in real life, where you can have one surgeon operating 10 operation theaters, just having that oversight. So even the most highly skilled jobs like a surgeon can be replaced by AI, but usually replacement comes with a very negative connotation. It's not replacement in the sense where you become useless, but actually it's about upskilling and how you can work with the AI to do much more. Absolutely.
That's encouraging to hear, because it's something that we speak a lot about, having that human touch at the end of things. And it's encouraging to hear that even at the tip of innovation in the Middle East, that you're focusing on that too.
Absolutely, you need that. That's the human element will definitely needs to be there to guide the AI, and it's supposed to be something that makes what a human can do just better, but not replace what a human does. And also another lesson I learned was that agility does not mean ignoring structure. It just means that you're designing flexibility to be embedded within your system. And this is something major, again, usually that happens between startups or the innovators and the public sector. And this is why the general perspective is one is very backward and one is very forward, and they're constantly fighting to meet each other, rather than working together from the start to develop the frameworks that are future ready, future proof, as in we used to always say in Dubai. And also again, one of the other lessons which was personal for me is that you could have the most incredible product, the most amazing product market fit, but if your team doesn't have synergy, it's just not going to work. The example, I mean, I don't know, I used to play FIFA Ultimate Team, and when you're creating your own team, you need to have this chemistry between all your players. And for the football fans out there, many people remember, so I'm a Barcelona supporter, but I always I'll take any chance to take a jab at Madrid. But with Madrid, for example, having the all-star team of the Galacticos, everyone would think on paper, whoa, these guys are unstoppable, there's nothing they can't win. But then you've got the ego of players, and then you've got the inner management and stuff, and that's a challenge of its own. So the idea is that, and this is what allowed me in Amllock to be very, very, very selective and make sure that I have the right culture from the very beginning. But yeah, that became part, because I learned a lot from some of these startups. They're really, really incredible, and it was such a good opportunity to be able to have them all at one place at one time to learn from them.
And you've talked about the importance of team, and what else do you think it takes to build something meaningful in what is a fast-moving and ever-changing world? I personally know clarity of purpose and self-belief are obviously key. How else did you guys approach this?
It's as simple but as hard as clarity of vision. And for me, what I found that always works for me, obviously it's not foolproof or fail proof, but it's working from so let's say you're at step 1, you want to get to step 10. I don't like to go step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I like to go step 9, 8, 7, 6, and walk myself backwards and kind of already put myself in the position where I want to reach to. So this is like make sure that the vision is very, very clear. And of course, I mean, sure, you know this more than anyone, but the resilience. You have to be, slapped around, dragged in the mud, punched in the face, and you still gotta get up and have a smile on your face. And it's this, not to sound cliche, but it's not about how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you keep getting up. And if you keep getting up, there's no way you lose. And just sticking with it, really. And it's also to have something that is beyond the product. So it's not to have a deep passion for solving a problem, with the technology that you've thought about or devised. And one of the most important lessons as well is that, again, they keep saying, don't reinvent the wheel, because sometimes all it takes is for you to aggregate technologies in a way that wasn't possible before, then package it into a product. And I always use the example of the phone, where every single component of the phone we use today wasn't developed by by Apple or Samsung. It was DARPA, it was CIA, it was the NSA, it was the Department of Energy. They developed all these individual components, but it was the mind of a visionary to come and say, you know what, if I integrate these components together and I package it this way, and then I offer it in that way, this is where, again, as I keep saying, something that is larger than the sum of its parts. So this is what I think what it takes to build something meaningful is really a combination of all these things. And it's just that, like you will never fail if you just keep going and listen as well. Don't assume. Listen to what people actually want to see.
One thing that I feel is common amongst the founders that are exceeding is that they've got a solution, not a product or a service that they package, but a real solution. So just echo what you said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's I mean, if you look back at, everything that became a unicorn and whatnot, it wasn't really, a lot of them were, as you mentioned, Warren, spot on, that it wasn't even a problem on someone's mind, but it was someone that found the problem, found the gap, and then filled it up so quick and so perfectly before anyone else that it became, oh my God, how did we ever live our lives before that? Think of Uber, for example, right? Can you remember the days where you used to, hail a cab from the street or call the a cab company for it, for it to arrive at your house? And then now we're like, how was life, before Uber? And the same thing as a business, it's like also the paradigm shifts. Like if you were in the early 2000s and you had a storefront, why the hell would you have a website? You could just say people just walk in and they buy whatever they want. But now if you're a storefront or any business, you don't have any online presence, you're sketchy, you're scammy, there's something off about you. And it's interesting. It's all about the shift in perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you mentioned Uber. That's an interesting case. I followed their sort of rise very closely over the years, and I know that they broke into geographical regions without regulation, without the sign off from local governments and regions. And it was a prime example of a tech startup trying to move fast whilst breaking things. We now see them as a market leader in that space. Now, on that, of course, here we expect organizations to lead responsibly. So I'm curious to gain your perspective in terms of how businesses or even individuals can balance bold innovation with the need for trust, compliance, and of course, long-term credibility.
Absolutely spot on. And we definitely took a page out of Uber's book in that sense, because as they say, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, especially when you're innovating. I discovered that early on. You're going to break things. You're going to break things very fast. If you have you know, the right approach or right intention, you could definitely, get away with it with a slap on the wrist, especially if you have the intention. And when regulators see that, listen, this is not someone with a bad intention, he just wants to innovate, a lot of times you'll see that they'll start working with you because they'll put themselves in your position. Again, it's human to human at the end of the day, no matter where they are and what they're doing. And again, if you're offering a solution that they're somehow interested in, or they have a cousin or a friend that might be interested in this solution, and he's a person that's working in government, you'll see that they're much more motivated to support. But absolutely, I mean, again, when you're talking about technologies that are way more advanced than the regulatory framework and compliance is available, it's much better to break things quick, and yeah, ask for forgiveness rather than permission. You'll always find out that you'll end up better than if you were too careful, and you don't want to ruffle any feathers, and you don't want to touch, and you're not going to really get anywhere. So you really have to have that stark smelling blood sometimes, that attribute, and especially it's as a founder. So you always have also that like David versus Goliath kind of mentality, and that keeps you going. But it's just like yeah, it's an, I guess I said, all of that can be done. It's very important that the vision is clear, because also as a team, you want to make sure that you're understanding why are you getting beaten up. If you get beaten up for so long, and if your why isn't bigger or larger, you're gonna hang up your gloves, you're gonna quit. So that's why it's so important to really understand why you're doing this, and believe that is larger than yourself. And then, of course, as I mentioned, it's to invite your users to participate, not to just consume. You want them to be a part of building this product, and realizing you'll never have a perfect MVP. You'll never have a perfect product right from the go. You can always do more, especially as a founder. But it's very important to say, you know what, I want to get the feedback from my customers. Yes, my product is far from perfect and what I want it to be, but I need to get it out there. I need to get it fast. I need to get feedback, reiterate, and keep doing this process. So this was a lesson that I've learned very, very early on. This is where we are here at this point.
And what other principles should individuals and organizations perhaps follow when they're developing emerging tech platforms with a view to scale globally?
So in terms of like principles, guiding principles, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Guiding principles is again, you want to make sure that whatever you're leaving out there is leaving the world around you in a better place. So if that comes to you're doing something that's saving people time, that's wonderful. You're saving people effort, that's wonderful. You're protecting users from something, that's great. But you need to, it's the right principle in place. It's just that I mean, and this applies also in business, but like to integrate, not compete. So for example, for Amllook, we could have taken the approach where we just want to compete with everyone. And we just, when, we are unique, we're the only one of our kinds, and we just want to, fight everyone. But also when you take a step back, you're like, you know what? I definitely think that if I integrate with this person, and it's just the law of competitive advantage in economics. If I'm offering something, for example, I'm licensing my technology to this person who wouldn't have had the access to it otherwise, they'll give me something in return. It's just kind of like this original, human barter with technology, that you really come up with something that you couldn't have imagined before, rather than being very close-minded and thinking that no, my way is the only way. So yeah, I also, that the other principle I heard early on from one of my mentors is, you have two ears and one mouth. Use that ratio accordingly. So listen twice for as much as you talk, which I'm obviously not doing a very good job of right now, but it's a podcast, so I'll be allowed to.
No, listen, it's fascinating stuff. And look, you're clearly, having met Joanna and of course yourself, Abdullah, they're two very impressive, motivated, highly capable individuals. And in terms of working with your life partner, maintaining trust, healthy boundaries, shared alignments, business and personal lives are going to be deeply entwined. Is it really hard to balance? Is it a balancing act within entrepreneurship? What's been your own experience building a company with your life partner, and what lessons has sort of emerged from that?
Yeah, so this is probably one of the most important lessons that I've learned. And obviously, I'll start off by saying it's a privilege for first and foremost to be working with, your life partner, your co-founder in business, having this shared vision, like, and about your future, and then really being so so connected to this vision and willing to really sacrifice and do everything because it's the collective, it's really something truly magical. Now, of course, it's very difficult because, as and you met Juwan. Juwan's a very, very passionate person, and so am I. So it's very important to kind of have these, the boundaries of respect, and also the boundaries that allow us to be more productive versions of each other. And what I mean by that is physically, like, so at work, I'm the CEO. At life, she's the CEO. So we call it the Minister of the Foreign Affairs, which is myself, and then the Minister of Interior Affairs, which is Joanna. And sometimes, we'll be talking, and of course, because we're very passionate, our work talk always spills over to personal time. So when we're having dinner, we're very passionate, so we're always talking work. So it's very important to, set times where this is a no work zone or no work time, just so that you can discover yourselves and keep that romantic aspect of a relationship alive, so that you're not treating your partner like like a colleague or a coworker, which can be very easy. And of course, the where we do sometimes this physical, where if I'm saying something, I'll just like actually do this, where I'm saying, okay, I'm putting in now my CEO hat on. I'm talking purely as a CEO. And then like I'll actually take the hat off and I'll say, okay, now I'm talking, for example, as your life partner. And the same thing, she'll do the same thing too as well. The most amazing thing is you get to really see each other in the hardest, most challenging situations. And your love for each other only grows when you see how that other person deals with that situation. So that pressure test, and then when they deal with it a certain way, it kind of gives you this vindication where, like, you know what, I chose the right person. That's my person, because of how they chose to go about this. And of course, about the how it genuinely made me a better person, even as a man or as a leader, to be able to, for example, control my emotions as a man, being more aligned with myself, especially because I'm a very, very passionate person. I'm very energetic. Sometimes when you have too much of this, it can cause, it could be very, very tough to balance the energy, especially, when things are happening and things are flying in all directions. But it's just about it taught me a lot more about patience. It taught me how to appreciate the little things, in each other, whether at work or in life. And the most important lesson of all, it's communication. How to communicate and bring out the best in each other. Sometimes it goes to as simple as, being each other's cheerleader, right?
Absolutely, nicely said, and appreciate you sharing that with us, Abdallah. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I'm glad you met Juwan actually previously, because then a lot of this makes sense because you had the chat with her. Yeah, it's I'm a very, very lucky man for sure.
And moving away from that, certainly we know we're going to see a lot of success in both of you. The rise of participatory economies is something that myself and Jay have looked into quite a lot. We've had conversations over the last several months, and that is one of the reasons we're really excited to get yourself and Joanna on the show. So, Abdullah, how is Amllock enabling this new kind of participatory economy, and why is this model gaining momentum at this time?
That's a great question. We're moving from, generally, and by we, I mean saying the world, is moving from extractive capitalism to regenerative ecosystems, where backers are stakeholders. They're not just supporters. So, through what I just mentioned, the revenue sharing NFTs means that the backers are growing with their business, and they are, being rewarded for doing so by receiving a cut to the, for their revenue, but also getting discounts, rewards, perks, and a way to engage with the business in a way that wasn't possible before. Voting, for example, on propositions, disbursement of funds. So this builds a very strong alignment between the creator and their community. So right now, if a business, has an online page, how's their engagement measured? Through likes, shares, comments, but that's it. It stops there. What about being actively involved in the business and how the business is run? And for you as a creator, you're happy because this is very rewarding for your backers and they're getting rewarded for it. You're not giving away any equity, but you're also getting much more engagement. But yeah, this idea of regenerative economy. So one of the things that we have in Amllock is we have this Amllock treasury, which is, so we take a part of the success fees from all the campaigns that are launching on Amllock, and then we reward backers so that they're not just backing projects that brought them in or projects that they're interested in, but to encourage them to look at other projects. The marketplace is going to allow people to buy and sell those claims. And then because they're NFTs, the metadata and the smart contracts are going to make sure that they're governed for forever in a trustless system that's completely automated and scalable. So this is the again the idea of regenerative economy, especially in today's world where blockchain Web3 allows you to be the owner of your your own data. As we say, like right now we're moving from Web2 to Web3, where in Web2 the big social media giants are monetizing on your data and you don't get anything. You're just happy to be a part of the show. But right now in Web3, your data, everything, your digital footprint, every time it's used anywhere, you're going to be rewarded for doing so. And this is what Amllock is trying to work and usher in. The example I use is that there's a huge wave coming, and Amllock is just ahead of the curve in grabbing that surfboard, putting our swimming trunks on, and just getting to surf that wave. But it's really about, as I said, moving from extractive capitalism to regenerative ecosystems, and turning every business gets to turn their community from just a community who are consuming their business to a consumer that is participatory in their business and plays that role.
You say every business. For our listeners, could you specify what that looks like? Can anyone be involved in this? If anyone's got an idea and they're looking to innovate, for instance, or is there a barrier to entry?
Yes. So, and that's actually one of the things that we were always trying to be, very careful from the beginning, because Amllock is so agnostic and really applies to every single situation. So, but we try to kind of narrow it down so it's more successful. So, right now, one of our main areas of focus is small medium enterprises. Why? Because they're disappearing, and we know that the sign of strength of any economy is the strength of these small medium enterprises and independently owned businesses. Right now, the big stores and whatever, that's been happening on for a few years, and we're seeing that that's disappearing. Even though a lot of these small medium enterprises have almost cult-like followings, businesses, because they know the father of the owner, that's been there for like 40 years, and they just will trust this person and this person only to develop this product or service or provide this product or service. So that is very, very, very important. And what Look is focusing on as well, ushering in or being a Web3 solution for a Web2 world. We don't even want people to know about blockchain or smart contracts or what goes on in the back. We're trying to stay away from the buzz and the fluff. So, but we've also seen some success with Web3 projects. So, for example, one of our campaigns that is live right now is called Lingo AI, and they have developed these AirPod-looking this device and they're working with the UN to distribute these pods to underserved communities to preserve languages. So this is, actually, there's a lot of communities, especially in Africa, Southeast Asia, and South America, where the languages are just disappearing. So these AirPods, just by being on there, pick up all these different dialects, and they're using AI will create a catalog of this language, and make sure that it's it doesn't disappear. But also the users who have these AirPods are being rewarded in tokens for doing so. So they created their campaign on Amllock, and they're seeing some great traction and success on that. We have another Web3 project that is a game. It's a Web3 game, play to earn. So it's really we are open. The only thing that Amllock will not really, I don't think, be very useful is for someone with just an idea without a community, right? So, and for those, we're not, again, we said there's GoFundMe for those, there's the Republic, there's Kickstarter, but none of them enable the creator and the community to enter in the relationship, in this participatory relationship, like Amllock does. And that's the beauty of Amllock, that it's not really touching on anyone's feathers, but really making what's existing right now better.
No, it's a true reflection of success being seen by those that actually want to go on a journey together, as opposed to getting these quick wins.
Exactly. And then, you wanna be you're talking about degenerate, put your money in crypto, chasing meme coins, and get that 100x. You want to put your money in stocks, go for it. In gold, great, go for it. Well, what about putting your money in a business that that you like, that use their service or product anyways, but now you're just moving from just being a consumer to an active participatory stakeholder, and then also being rewarded for that in in discounts, perks, exclusive access, but also revenue, which is from a business model that you understand as well. So we're really, all the other avenues are out there. Amllook is just taking its own niche path in that sense.
And one of the things we tend to ask a lot of our guests more and more as the episodes have gone on is, Warren and I are obviously very passionate about early years within cyber. We know there's growing online risk. It's crucial to help children, navigate and develop positive digital habits and strong cyber hygiene. We always ask people really where they feel that maybe areas of emerging tech may excite and engage the next generation and help encourage this. So, what do you feel the areas of emerging tech such as AI or ethical hacking or blockchain, and how do you feel we can best position these and frame these to make them more accessible to kids and excite them and make them more inclusive, I guess?
Yeah. So do you remember in school when you used to, you're in a maths class, and then you're solving this problem, and then you think to yourself, oh my God, when the hell am I ever going to use this? And then and it just goes through one ear and out the other. But then all of a sudden, if I am putting you in a situation that is beneficial for you and you can understand it, and then I teach you this concept, it's going to, stick in your mind, and you're going to perceive it differently. So the idea is that you need to make it personal, not just, where you're just regurgitating best practices or principle, especially because in today's world it allows you to do. So it needs to be, for example, if you're a kid, you want to teach them, obviously, blockchain and what blockchain can do. Let's say they're a gamer, you could tell them about how blockchain is going to reshape the gaming industry. If they're an artist, how this is going to protect and artists and enable them to do what they want to do on a much larger scale. Tech needs to be reframed as creative, collaborative, and impactful, not just hard science. So especially for kids. So storytelling and mentorship is a major point, and getting them to play around with it, to see how it is applicable for them, rather than what the generation which we grew up in, and saying, you go to class and there's a teacher that for an hour just drills your head with just all the bits of information, and then you have this natural sense to rebel against this and saying, no, I don't want that, I don't want to learn this. Rather than today, it's just to show them in practice, and because of the technology, you actually can. But I'm very glad you touched upon this, because it's super important, especially for the generation that's coming, where I don't know, who's to say that every single child born, maybe 15 years from now is gonna, rather than going to school and having a teacher at school, maybe is gonna have their own AI assistant that will learn them, know what they're good at, and then disseminate all the knowledge in the curriculums that we've learned from grade 1 to grade 12 in ways that are applicable for them. So their own AI teacher. So it's very important that these children understand the benefits, but also the grave dangers of this technology. And us as adults, honestly, we are far from for example, the ethical considerations and discussing the impact. And I mean, going all the way back to what we just said about the self-driving cars, two self-driving cars getting to an accident. So we also have to do a lot more of that. Playing around with technology and building it is all cool and fun, but it's going to have to ride somewhere, and it's going to have to operate within a certain framework. So we also need to do a much better job at, devising this. And what you guys are doing, for example, with this podcast, getting all these brilliant minds from different parts of tech to share their insights. This is how we can develop this framework and make it digestible for the generation of tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing your perspective there. And you've obviously worked across startup ecosystems and, of course, public innovation platforms. From your perspective, what are the three pros and three cons that working in tech that founders and, of course, aspiring tech leaders should know at this time?
Yeah, so the benefits really is this, the speed to build, the global reach, the creative freedom, the ability to own, your data, your digital footprint. The challenges is just all the noise in between, and as we see, like when the media takes the the wrong end of a stick, like it did, for example, with educating people about NFTs. People, whenever you say NFT right now, they immediately think of a monkey that's sold for $200,000 that's a JPEG. Oh, but can't I screenshot it? Can't I just do it? And they just didn't understand what NFT is. And this comes down again to the media educating people the right way. We're still very, very, very early. Right now, it's the equivalent of me talking about Instagram and Snapchat in the early 2000s. You tell me I'm crazy. Just what are you talking about? Versus right now, it's just a way of life. People have full careers built on these platforms. So the noise, regulatory complexity, again, as I said, co-creating and co-building with the regulators and the people who set the frameworks. And it's managing burnout, because there's just so much. We have not yet evolved to deal with the stimulus that we are dealing with right now. Think of, as the human brain. And I always refer back to the brain because that's my background. But look at the last 100 years of human development. Look at the last 1,000 years of human development. Everything's gone at an exponential pace. But do you think our brains have yet evolved, which happened over the last 10 years, to be reachable at any single moment in time by anyone, receive messages from everywhere, connect to social media and see information from everyone, what everyone is doing at the same time? All this, we have not yet evolved to the point to actually, I would say, dissect and, digest this information the right way. So this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges, is that we are just this balance. And I think for founders, like I said, clarity of vision, they need to be able to build with their community, not rather than build for their community, and doing also at a sustainable pace.
And from your perspective, what leadership traits or mindset shift do you think that will define the next generation of tech innovators?
Yes, so I think it's the move from control to orchestration. And something that I'm very passionate about is leading from behind. So the difference between, I've seen this a long time before and it really stuck with me. But like where, a boss is someone who sits at the top and shouts orders, whereas a leader is someone who is rolling up his sleeves and working from the bottom up. And I think this is huge for the culture. I think right now you can't possibly know all the answers. There's no way, but you have access to technology, which is going to give you all the answers. So this is, and the realizing as a leader just how much you don't know and how to set the right strategies to get you to be as close to that as possible, and knowing that you're probably going to die never knowing it all. That's just the way it works, right? But just knowing this, but still having the hunger and the passion, the relentless pursuit of knowing as much as possible, and especially into again, with a trustless technology like blockchain, even though you don't need humans, but the human element also becomes more relevant than ever before. So and again, as you know, with AI, and again, this enhancing human capabilities, the human element, particularly the EQ, the emotional intelligent component, becomes more relevant than ever right now. I think this is really for as far as the mind shift for a leader, go from the world that we were in to the world that we're heading into.
So Abdallah, look, it's been an absolute pleasure listening to you, and I think a lot of the people who've been sharing this episode with us will have had some fantastic insight from a founder's perspective. What does the future hold for you? Obviously you've been involved in some really exciting work, and where do you see the future now for Amllock in terms of your mission and your vision going forward?
Well, thank you very much, guys. Really, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I love how natural it feels conversing. It feels like we guys are just sitting in the living room and we're talking, and it's just always so amazing to chat about these things with brilliant minds like yourselves and people who are truly passionate about how the digital architecture of the future is going to look like with from all the different components, but talking about things that actually matter beyond the technical aspects. So yeah, it's been very, very exciting. So as you mentioned, we were just at Consensus 2025 Toronto. We were selected top 40 out of 140 startups globally for the Consensus pitch. We made it to the top 10, and it's just been incredible to we've been spending the last 2 years with the compliance, building the project, bootstrapping everything, chasing around. For the first time ever, people were chasing us. And that for me felt, I mean, for the rest of the team as well, felt very, very vindicating and just such a beautiful feeling. So we actually just kicked off our investment round. We've been bootstrapped so far. I mean, another lesson that I learned is never take money too early, especially from the VCs, because they will, not all of them, of course, but for the majority, just how they work. They will compromise your long-term vision for short-term ROI. But we had brilliant conversation with some angel investors. We have conversations running on for the next 2 weeks. So yeah, we're officially opening our doors, talk for investment. The amazing thing is now to be in a position, and this again from my previous experiences, where you don't need the money to get to where you want to get to, but it's just going to get you there much faster. And that is a very, very good position to be in. We're very happy. So we're currently, other than investment, we're onboarding creators. We met a lot of very interesting projects at Consensus that want to launch campaigns on Amllock. So we're going to be doing that over the next 2 weeks. Marketing, honestly, has been very organic. We really haven't spent anything on marketing. It's been word of mouth, project creators telling other project creators about Amllock, and it's been beautiful. What we envision Amllock to be is the go-to solution for any business with a community, rather than going to a bank, turn their trust capital into working capital, especially the world that we're heading into, this whole regenerative economy, participatory economy. As I said, moving from extractive capitalism to more regenerative ecosystems, and for Amllock to be playing a key role in this. So that's what the next couple of weeks looks like right now, is just, meeting with investors, onboarding some awesome project creators, which I'm so super excited about. And of course, we'll share with you. Yeah, it's going to be a very, very exciting couple of weeks for us, for sure. A couple of months actually.
And richly deserved. I think I can imagine an amazingly satisfying and rewarding time for you, Joanna, and the team, Abdallah. So I reiterate a huge congratulations once again on your success and recognition for everything you've done. It's fascinating to hear your own story and obviously what the business has been doing. So a huge amount of kudos to you. Thank you. For all of our listeners who want to stay in touch with you, obviously LinkedIn, of course. Is there anywhere else that they can reach out?
Well, I'm trying my shot at this whole Instagram influencer thing. I don't know how successful I'm being, but I feel like I'm trying to show that more the personal side of building Amllock, and for me. So Instagram is a good spot, and I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I am becoming more active on X, but I believe that the two main platforms, if anyone wants to learn more, and I'd love to have any chats, Instagram and LinkedIn.
Well, look, on behalf of Warren and myself, I'd like to say a huge thank you. I'm sure the community and all our listeners will have got a huge amount of value in today's episode. If people want to continue the discussion and for more sustained engagement, as always, we invite you to join the Secure CyberConnect podcast community, where we're offering a range of collaborative solutions for tech and security professionals at no cost. These are, as always, expansive community access, mutual mentoring programs, online networking, and a range of exclusive interviews such as this, with panel discussions and masterclasses coming later in 2025. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.
If you're struggling with cultural, technological, or talent acquisition challenges, reach out to the Secure CyberConnect team, where we offer advice and guidance, and we're here to help.